What organisms are included in the kingdom fungi?
Members of the kingdom fungi range from single-celled yeasts to Armillaria ostoi, a species that covers 2,220 acres, 890 hectares. Also included are mushrooms that are commonly consumed, the black mold that forms on stale bread, the mildew that grows on damp shower curtains, rusts, smuts, puffballs, toadstools, shelf fungi, and the death cap mushroom, Amanita phalloides. Of the bewildering variety of organisms that live on the planet Earth, perhaps the most unusual and peculiarly different from human beings are fungi. Fungi are able to rot timber, attack living plants, spoil food, and afflict humans with athlete's foot and even worse maladies. Fungi also decompose dead organisms, fallen leaves, and other organic materials. In addition, they produce antibiotics and other drugs, make bread rise, and ferment beer and wine.
Whose work during the Roman era became the authority on anatomy?
Galen, 130–200, a Greek physician, anatomist, and physiologist living during the time of the Roman Empire, was one of the most influential and authoritative authors on medical subjects. His writings include on anatomical procedures, on the usefulness of the parts of the body, on the natural faculties, and hundreds of other treatises. Since human dissection was forbidden, Galen made most of his observations on different animals. He correctly described bones and muscles and observed muscles working in contracting pairs. He was also able to describe heart valves and structural differences between arteries and veins. While his work contained many errors, he provided many accurate anatomical details that are still regarded as classics. Galen's writings were the accepted standard text for anatomical studies for 1,400 years.
Did the White House ever have solar panels?
Yes, during President Jimmy Carter's 1924 administration. 32 solar panels were installed on the roof of the White House above the Oval Office on June 30, 1979. The panels were subsequently removed in 1986 during President Ronald Reagan's 1911–2004 administration.
How did the term glitch originate?
A glitch is a sudden interruption or fracture in a chain of events, such as in commands to a processor. The stability may or may not be salvageable. The word is thought to have evolved from the German glitchen, meaning to slip, or by the Yiddish glitchen, to slide or skid. One small glitch can lead to a cascade of failure along a network. For instance, In 1997, a small internet service provider in Virginia unintentionally provided incorrect router. A router is the method by which the network determines the next location for information. Information to a backbone operator. A backbone is a major network thoroughfare in which local and regional networks patch into for lengthy interconnections. Because many other internet service providers rely on the backbone providers, the error echoed around the globe, causing temporary network failures.
From what plant is Taxol extracted?
Taxol is produced from the bark of the western or Pacific yew, Taxus brevifolia. It has been shown to inhibit the growth of HeLa cells, human cancer cells, and is a promising new treatment for several kinds of cancer. Originally it was a scarce drug, but in 1994 two groups of researchers announced its synthesis. The synthesis is a formidable challenge, and better procedures and modifications remain to be developed. Since Taxol is developed now from needles instead of tree bark, the natural source is more available, but the synthetic version will be needed to devise modified or designer Taxols whose cancer-fighting ability may prove more effective.
What is a tiger's eye?
Tiger's eye is a semi-precious quartz gem that has a vertical luminescent band like that of a cat's eye. To achieve the effect of a cat's eye, veins of parallel blue asbestos fibers are first altered to iron oxides and then replaced by silica. The gem has a rich yellow to yellow-brown or brown color.
What is a dolphin-safe tuna?
The order Cetacea, composed of whales, dolphins, and porpoises, were spared from the extinction of large mammals at the end of the Pleistocene about 10,000 years ago.
Where was the first hydroelectric power plant in the United States built?
Appleton, Wisconsin, is the site of the first hydroelectric generating plant in the United States. It was built in 1882.
What is galena?
Galena is a lead sulfide, PBS, and the most common ore of lead, containing 86.6% lead. Lead gray in color, with a brilliant metallic luster, galena has a specific gravity of 7.5 and a hardness of 2.5 on the Mohs scale, and usually occurs as cubes or a modification of an octahedral form. Mined in Australia, it is also found in Canada, China, Mexico, Peru, and the United States, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Montana, and Idaho.
Why does hair turn gray as part of the aging process?
The pigment in hair, as well as in the skin, is called melanin. There are two types of melanin, eumelanin, which is dark brown or black, and pheomelanin, which is reddish yellow. Both are made by a type of cell called a melanocyte that resides in the hair bulb and along the bottom of the outer layer of skin, or epidermis. The melanocytes pass this pigment to adjoining epidermal cells called keratinocytes, which produce the protein keratin, hair's chief component. When the keratinocytes undergo their scheduled death, they retain the melanin. Thus, the pigment that is visible in the hair and in the skin lies in these dead keratinocyte bodies. Gray hair is simply hair with less melanin, and white hair has no melanin at all. It remains unclear as to how hair loses its pigment. In the early stages of graying, the melanocytes are still present but inactive. Later they seem to decrease in number. Genes control this lack of deposition of melanin. In some families, many members' hair turns white while they are still in their 20s. Generally speaking, among Caucasians 50% are gray by age 50. There is, however, wide variation.
What is the color of lightning?
The atmospheric conditions determine the color of lightning. Blue lightning within a cloud indicates the presence of hail. Red lightning within a cloud indicates the presence of rain. Yellow or orange lightning indicates a large concentration of dust in the air. White lightning is a sign of low humidity in the air.
What is cloning?
A clone is a group of cells derived from the original cell by fission, one cell dividing into two cells. Or by mitosis, cell nucleus division with each chromosome splitting into two. Cloning perpetuates an existing organism's genetic makeup. Gardeners have been making clones of plants for centuries by taking cuttings of plants to make genetically identical copies. For plants that refuse to grow from cuttings, or for the animal world. Modern scientific techniques have greatly extended the range of cloning. The technique for plants starts with taking a cutting of a plant that best satisfies the criteria for reproductive success, beauty, or some other standard. Since all of the plant's cells contain the genetic information from which the entire plant can be reconstructed, the cutting can be taken from any part of the plant, placed in a culture medium having nutritious chemicals and a growth hormone. The cells in the cutting divide, doubling in size every 6 weeks until The mass of cells produces small white globular points called embryoids. These embryoids develop roots, or shoots, and begin to look like tiny plants. Transplanted into compost, these plants grow into exact copies of the parent plant. The whole process takes 18 months. This process, called tissue culture, has been used to make clones of oil palm, asparagus, pineapples, strawberries, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, bananas, carnations, ferns, and others. Besides making highly productive copies of the best plant available. This method controls viral diseases that are passed through normal seed generations.
How common are lightning strikes?
Thunderstorms are a very common natural phenomenon. At any given moment, there are 1,800 thunderstorms in progress somewhere on the Earth. Lightning detection systems in the United States monitor an average of 25 million flashes of lightning from cloud to ground every year.
What are the most common tapeworm infections in humans?
Tapeworms, members of the class Cestida, have long, flat bodies in which there is a linear series of sets of reproductive organs. Each set or segment is called a proglottid.
What controls the formation of the color points in a Siamese cat?
The color points are due to the presence of a recessive gene that operates at cooler temperatures, limiting the color to well-defined areas: the mask, ears, tail, lower legs, and paws, the places at the far reaches of the cardiovascular system of the cat. There are 4 classic varieties of Siamese cats. Seal points have a pale fawn to cream-colored coat with seal brown markings. Blue points are bluish-white with slate blue markings. Chocolate points are ivory-colored with milk chocolate brown-colored markings. Lilac points have a white coat and pinkish-gray markings. There are also some newer varieties with red, cream, and tabby points. The Siamese originated in Thailand, once called Siam, and arrived in England in the 1880s. They are medium-sized and have long, slender, lithe bodies, with long heads and long, tapering tails. Extroverted and affectionate, Siamese are known for their loud, distinctive voices, which are impossible to ignore.
Who performed some of the earliest studies on digestion?
William Beaumont, 1785 to 1853, an army surgeon, performed some of the earliest studies on digestion. In 1822, Alexis Saint Martin, 1794 to 1880, was accidentally wounded by a shotgun blast. Beaumont began treatment of the wound immediately. Saint Martin's recuperation lasted nearly 3 years. And the enormous wound healed except for a small opening leading into his stomach. A fold of flesh covered this opening. When this was pushed aside, the interior of the stomach was exposed to view. Through the opening, Beaumont was able to extract and analyze gastric juice and stomach contents at various stages of digestion. Observe changes in secretions, and note the stomach's muscular movements. The results of his experiments and observations formed the basis of our modern knowledge of digestion.
Why is liquid water more dense than ice?
Pure liquid water is most dense at 39.2 degrees Fahrenheit 3.98 degrees Celsius and decreases in density as it freezes. The water molecules in ice are held in a relatively rigid geometric pattern by their hydrogen bonds, producing an open, porous structure. Liquid water has fewer bonds, therefore, more molecules can occupy the same space, making liquid water more dense than ice.
What is carpal tunnel syndrome?
Carpal tunnel syndrome occurs when a branch of the median nerve in the forearm is compressed at the wrist as it passes through the tunnel formed by the wrist bones, or carpals, and a ligament that lies just under the skin. The syndrome occurs most often in middle age and more so in women than men. The symptoms are intermittent at first, then become constant. Numbness and tingling begin in the thumb and first 2 fingers. Then the hand and sometimes the whole arm becomes painful. Treatment involves wrist splinting, weight loss, and control of edema. Treatments for arthritis may help also. If not, a surgical procedure in which the ligament at the wrist is cut can relieve pressure on the nerve. Those who work continuously with computer keyboards are particularly vulnerable to carpal tunnel syndrome. To minimize the risk of developing this problem, operators should keep their wrists straight as they type, rather than tilting the hands up. It is also best to place the keyboard at a lower position than a standard desktop.
How are tree rings used to date historical events?
The study of tree rings is known as dendrochronology. Every year, trees produce an annular ring composed of one wide, light ring and one narrow, dark ring. During spring and early summer, tree stem cells grow rapidly larger, thus producing the wide, light ring. In winter, growth is greatly reduced and cells are much smaller, producing the narrow, dark ring. In the coldest part of winter or the dry heat of summer, no cells are produced. Comparing pieces of dead trees of unknown age with the rings of living trees. allows scientists to establish the date when the fragment was part of a living tree. This technique has been used to date the ancient pueblos throughout the southwestern United States. A subfield of dendrochronology is dendroclimatology. Scientists study the tree rings of very old trees to determine climatic conditions of the past. The effects of droughts, pollution, insect infestations, fires, volcanoes, and earthquakes are all visible in tree rings.
What are some newer forms of portable storage media?
External hard drives are similar to the internal hard drive of the machine with storage capacity of up to and beyond 2 TB. Often using a USB port to connect, they provide an easy alternative for backup storage. Compact discs, CDs, and DVDs are optical storage devices. There are 3 types of CDs and DVDs: read-only, write-once, CDR and DVD-R, and rewritable, CDRW and DVD-RW. Although read-only CDs and DVDs are wonderful for pre-packaged software, they do not permit a user to save their own material. CDRs store 700 megabytes of data and can be written once. DVD-Rs are similar to CDRs except they hold 4 to 28 times more data. Single-disc DVD-Rs are available that can store 4.7 GB of data or 2 hours of video. Read/write CDs use a different chemical compound which allows data to be recorded, erased, and rewritten. Solid-state storage technology has no moving parts. One example is flash memory sticks. All cells are set to 0 on the memory chip before data is stored in a flash memory stick. When data are entered, electric charges are applied to certain cells. These charges pierce a thin layer of oxide and become trapped. The trapped charges become ones. The binary code pattern of zeros and ones is stored into the memory. Flash memory sticks are available with up to 64 GB of storage, providing large amounts of easily transportable storage.
What are the 4 major groups of plants?
They are non-vascular, seedless vascular, flowering, seed-bearing vascular, and non-flowering, seed-bearing vascular. Plants are divided into phyla based on whether they are vascular, containing vascular tissue consisting of cells joined into tubes that transport water and nutrients, or non-vascular. The phyla of vascular plants are then further divided into seedless plants and those that contain seeds. Plants with seeds are divided into flowering and non-flowering groups. Non-vascular plants have traditionally been called bryophytes. Because bryophytes lack a system for conducting water and nutrients, they are restricted in size and live in moist areas close to the ground. Examples of bryophytes are mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. Examples of seedless, vascular plants are ferns, horsetails, and club mosses. The conifers, which are cone-bearing, are seed-bearing, non-flowering vascular plants. The majority of plants are seed-bearing, flowering, vascular plants known as angiosperms.
Who is considered the founder of systematic astronomy?
The Greek scientist Hipparchus, c. 190 to 120 BCE, is considered to be the father of systematic astronomy. He measured as accurately as possible the directions of objects in the sky. He compiled the first catalogue of stars, containing about 850 entries, and designated each star's celestial coordinates, indicating its position in the sky. Hipparchus also divided the stars according to their apparent brightness or magnitudes.
How large is the Antarctic ozone hole?
The term hole is widely used in popular media when reporting on ozone. However, the concept is more correctly described as a low concentration of ozone that occurs in August-October, springtime in the southern hemisphere. It was not observed until 1979. The first scientific article on ozone depletion in the Antarctic was published in Nature in 1985. The largest ozone hole ever observed, 11.4 million square miles. 29.6 million square kilometers, occurred on September 24, 2006. The daily maximum ozone hole area for 2009 was 9.3 million square miles, 24 million square kilometers.
For whom is the Hubble Space Telescope named?
Edwin Powell Hubble, 1889 to 1953, was an American astronomer known for his studies of galaxies. His study of nebulae, or clouds the faint, unresolved luminous patches in the sky showed that some of them were large groups of many stars. Hubble classified galaxies by their shapes as being spiral, elliptical, or irregular. Hubble's law establishes a relationship between the velocity of recession of a galaxy and its distance. The speed at which a galaxy is moving away from our solar system, measured by its redshift, the shift of its light to longer wavelengths, presumed to be caused by the Doppler effect, is directly proportional to the galaxy's distance from it. The Hubble Space Telescope was deployed by the Space Shuttle Discovery on April 25, 1990. The telescope, which would be free of distortions caused by Earth's atmosphere, was designed to see deeper into space than any telescope on land. However, on June 27, 1990, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration announced that The telescope had a defect in one of its mirrors that prevented it from properly focusing. Although other instruments, including one designed to make observations in ultraviolet light, were still operating. Nearly 40% of the telescope's experiments had to be postponed until repairs were made. On December 2, 1993, astronauts were able to make the necessary repairs. 4 of Hubble's 6 gyroscopes were replaced as well as 2 solar panels. Hubble's primary camera, which had a flawed mirror, was also replaced. Since that mission, 4 other servicing missions have been conducted, dramatically improving the HST's capabilities.
How long does it take the average spider to weave a complete web?
The average orb weaver spider takes 30 to 60 minutes to completely spin its web. These species of spiders, order Araneae, use silk to capture their food in a variety of ways, ranging from the simple tripwires used by large bird-eating spiders to the complicated and beautiful webs spun by orb spiders. Some species produce funnel-shaped webs, and other communities of spiders build communal webs. A completed web features several spokes leading from the initial structure. The number and nature of the spokes depend on the species. The spider replaces any damaged threads by gathering up the thread in front of it and producing a new one behind it. The orb web must be replaced every few days because it loses its stickiness and its ability to entrap food.
What adverse effects may a person who is allergic to sulfites experience?
Sulfites are chemical agents used to prevent discoloration in dried fruits and freshly cut vegetables. They are also used by winemakers to inhibit bacterial growth and fermentation. If a person is allergic to sulfites, he or she can develop breathing difficulties within minutes of consuming food or drink containing sulfites. Reactions to sulfites can include acute asthma attacks, loss of consciousness, and anaphylactic shock.
What is a small solar system body?
The International Astronomical Union defines a small solar system body as all objects that orbit the Sun and are too small for their own gravity to pull them into a nearly spherical shape. Simply stated, they are all objects that do not meet the definition of a planet or dwarf planet. Examples of small solar system bodies are asteroids, near-Earth objects, Mars and Jupiter Trojan asteroids, most centaurs, most trans-Neptunian objects, and comets.
What was the music of the spheres?
Inaudible to human beings, the music of the spheres is a theoretic Harmony or music created by the movements of the planets and heavenly bodies. Its existence was proclaimed by Pythagoras and accepted widely in the Greek world. It was later disproved by scientists.
How large can hailstones become?
The average hailstone is about 0.25 inch, 0.64 centimeter, in diameter. However, hailstones weighing up to 7.5 pounds, 3.4 kilograms, are reported to have fallen in Hyderabad state in India in 1939. Although scientists think these huge hailstones may be several stones that partly melted and stuck together. On April 14, 1986, hailstones weighing 2.5 pounds, 1 kilogram, were reported to have fallen in the Gopalganj district of Bangladesh. The largest hailstone ever recorded in the United States fell in Coffeyville, Kansas. On September 3, 1970. It measured 5.57 inches, 14.15 centimeters, in diameter and weighed 1.67 pounds, 0.75 kilogram. Hail is precipitation consisting of balls of ice. Hailstones usually are made of concentric, or onion-like layers of ice alternating with partially melted and refrozen snow, structured around a tiny central core. It is formed in cumulonimbus, or thunderclouds, when freezing water and ice cling to small particles in the air, such as dust. The winds in the cloud blow the particles through zones of different temperatures, causing them to accumulate additional layers of ice and melting snow and to increase in size.
What is the circumference of Earth?
Earth is an oblate ellipsoid, a sphere slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. The distance around Earth at the equator is 24,902 miles, 40,075 kilometers. The distance around Earth through the poles is 24,860 miles, 40,008 kilometers.
What is the law of complementary base pairing?
The law of complementary base pairing refers to the pairing of nitrogenous bases in a specific manner. Purines pair with pyrimidines. More specifically, adenine must always pair with thymine, and guanine must always pair with cytosine. The basis of this law came from the data obtained by Edwin Chargaff, 1905 to 2002, and is known as Chargaff's law, or rule.
Which woods are used for telephone poles?
The principal woods used for telephone poles are southern pine, Douglas fir, western red cedar, and lodgepole pine. Ponderosa pine, red pine, jack pine, northern white cedar, and western larch are also used.
Which states have geothermal power plants?
Geothermal power plants in the United States produced 14.86 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity, or 0.4% of the total U.S. electricity generation. 6 states: California, Nevada, Hawaii, Idaho, Montana, and Utah all have geothermal power plants. The 34 geothermal power plants in California produce almost 90% of all geothermal generated electricity in the United States.
What is the composition of lymph?
Lymph is similar in composition to blood plasma. The main chemical difference is that lymph does not contain erythrocytes. It also contains a much lower concentration of protein than plasma, since most protein molecules are too large to filter through the capillary wall. Lymph contains water, some plasma proteins, electrolytes, lipids, leukocytes, coagulation factors, antibodies, enzymes, sugars, urea, and amino acids.
How many types of herpes virus are there?
There are 5 human herpes viruses. Herpes simplex type 1 causes recurrent cold sores and infections of the lips, mouth, and face. The virus is contagious and spreads by direct contact with the lesions or fluid from the lesions. Cold sores are usually recurrent at the same sites and occur where there is an elevated temperature at the affected site, such as with a fever or prolonged sun exposure. Occasionally this virus may occur on the fingers with a rash of blisters. If the virus gets into the eye, it could cause conjunctivitis, or even a corneal ulcer. On rare occasions, it can spread to the brain to cause encephalitis. Herpes simplex type 2 causes genital herpes and infections acquired by babies at birth. The virus is contagious and can be transmitted by sexual intercourse. The virus produces small blisters in the genital area that burst to leave small painful ulcers, which heal within 10 days to 3 weeks. Headache, fever, enlarged lymph nodes, and painful urination are the other symptoms. Varicella zoster. Herpes zoster causes chicken pox and shingles. Shingles can be caused by the dormant virus in certain sensory nerves that re-emerge with the decline of the immune system, because of age, certain diseases, and the use of immunosuppressants, excessive stress, or use of corticosteroid drugs. The painful rash of small blisters dry and crust over, eventually leaving small pitted scars. The rash tends to occur over the rib area or a strip on one side of the neck or lower body. Sometimes it involves the lower half of the face and can affect the eyes. Pain that can be severe and long-lasting affects about half of the sufferers and is caused by nerve damage. Epstein-Barr causes infectious mononucleosis, acute infection having high fever, sore throat, and swollen lymph glands, especially in the neck, which occurs mainly during adolescence, and is associated with Burkitt's lymphoma. Malignant tumors of the jaw or abdomen that occur mainly in African children and in tropical areas. Cytomegalovirus usually results in no symptoms but enlarges the cells it infects. It can cause birth defects when a pregnant mother infects her unborn child. 3 other human herpes viruses are also known: human herpes virus 6, HHV6, commonly associated with Rosella, and human herpes viruses 7 and 8, HHV7/8, whose disease association is not yet understood. Herpes gestationis is a rare skin blister disorder occurring only in pregnancy and is not related to the herpes simplex virus.
What is unique about the rotation of the planet Venus?
Unlike Earth and most of the other planets, Venus rotates in a retrograde, or opposite, direction with relation to its orbital motion around the Sun. It rotates so slowly that only 2 sunrises and sunsets occur each Venusian year. Uranus's rotation is also retrograde.
How fast do fingernails grow?
Healthy nails grow about 0.12 inch, 3 millimeters, each month or 1.4 inches, 3.5 centimeters, each year. It takes approximately 3 months for a whole fingernail to be replaced. The middle fingernail grows the fastest. Because the longer the finger, the faster its nail growth. The thumbnail grows the slowest.
How much paper is recycled in the United States?
In 2008, 43 million tons, or 56%, of all paper used was recovered for recycling. This amounts to 340 pounds of paper for every man, woman, and child in the United States.
How does a search engine work?
Internet search engines are akin to computerized card catalogs at libraries. They provide a hyperlinked listing of locations on the World Wide Web, according to the requested keyword or pattern of words submitted by the searcher. A search engine uses computer software called spiders or bots to automatically search out, inventory, and index web pages. The spiders scan each web page's content for words and the frequency of the words, then stores that information in a database. When the user submits words or terms, the search engine returns a list of sites from the database and ranks them according to the relevancy of the search terms.
What is the Kelvin temperature scale?
Temperature is the level of heat in a gas, liquid, or solid. The freezing and boiling points of water are used as standard reference levels in both the metric centigrade or Celsius, and the English system, Fahrenheit. In the metric system, the difference between freezing and boiling is divided into 100 equal intervals called degree Celsius or degree centigrade, degree C. In the English system, the intervals are divided into 180 units, with one unit called degree Fahrenheit, degree F. But temperature can be measured from absolute zero, no heat, no motion. This principle defines thermodynamic temperature and establishes a method to measure it upward. This scale of temperature is called the Kelvin temperature scale. After its inventor, William Thomson, Lord Kelvin, 1824 to 1907, who devised it in 1848. The Kelvin K has the same magnitude as the degree Celsius. The difference between freezing and boiling water is 100 degrees. But the two temperatures differ by 273.15 degrees, 0 K equals minus 273.15 degrees Celsius. Below is a comparison of the three temperatures. To convert Celsius to Kelvin, add 273.15 to the temperature, K equals C plus 273.15. To convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, subtract 32 from the temperature and multiply the difference by 5, then divide the product by 9, C equals 5/9F, 32. To convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, multiply the temperature by 1.8, then add 32, F equals 9/5C plus 32.
How much oil is estimated to be in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge?
Geologists are uncertain as to the exact amount of oil that is in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Based on the one seismic survey that was done and the exploration of a few test wells drilled, it is estimated that there may be 16 billion barrels of oil under the tundra of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. However, how economical it is to recover the oil is dependent on market prices and shipping costs. When oil was $25 per barrel, the United States Geological Survey estimated only 7 billion barrels might be pumped profitably. When the price per barrel soared to over $100 per barrel, it would be profitable to recover many more billions of barrels of oil. Drilling for oil in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge continues to pose many environmental issues and concerns.
Who developed the poliomyelitis vaccine for polio?
Immunologist Jonas Salk, 1914 to 1995, developed the first vaccine, made from a killed virus, against poliomyelitis and is known as the man who defeated polio. In 1952 he prepared and tested the vaccine, and in 1954 massive field tests were successfully undertaken. 2 years later immunologist Albert Sabin, 1906 to 1993, developed an oral vaccine made from inactivated live viruses of 3 polio strains. Currently, an inactivated polio vaccine, IPV, is given as an injection at ages 2 months, 4 months, 6 to 18 months, and a booster at 4 to 6 years.
Is there such a thing as a completely circular rainbow?
All rainbows would be completely round except that the ground gets in the way of completing the circle. However, if viewed from a high altitude, such as an airplane, circular rainbows can be seen when the angle between the sun, the water droplets, and the plane is between the 40 degrees and 42 degrees. In this case, the rainbow is horizontal, meaning that it is parallel to the ground and therefore not blocked by the ground. This is quite a sight.
What was the first National Chemical Society organized in the United States?
The first National Chemical Society in the United States was the American Chemical Society, organized in New York City on April 20, 1876. The first president was John William Draper, 1811 to 1882.
How are animals classified?
Animals belong to the kingdom Animalia. Most biologists divide the kingdom into 2 subkingdoms. 1. Parazoa. From the Greek para, meaning alongside, and zoa, meaning animal, and 2. Eumetazoa. From the Greek eu, meaning true, meta, meaning later, and zoa, meaning animal. The only existing animals classified as parazoa are the sponges, phylum Porifera. Sponges are very different from other animals and function much like colonial unicellular protozoa even though they are multicellular. Cells of sponges can be versatile and change form and function and are not organized into tissues and organs. They also lack symmetry. All other animals have true tissues, are symmetrical, and are classified as eumetazoa.
How many different bridge games are possible?
Roughly 54 octillion different bridge games are possible.
What is heavy water?
Heavy water, also called deuterium oxide, D20, is composed of oxygen and two hydro-8 atoms in the form of deuterium, which has about twice the mass of normal hydrogen. As a result, heavy water has a molecular weight of about 20, while ordinary water has a molecular weight of about 18. Approximately 1 part heavy water can be found in 6,500 parts of ordinary water, and it may be extracted by fractional distillation. It is used in thermonuclear weapons and nuclear reactors and as an isotopic tracer in studies of chemical and biochemical processes. Heavy water was discovered by Harold C. Urey, 1893 to 1981, in 1931. He received the Nobel Prize in chemistry in 1934 for his discovery of heavy hydrogen.
What was one of the most famous criminal cases involving forensic botany?
Forensic botany is the identification of plants or plant products. This form of study can be used to produce evidence for legal trials. One of the first criminal cases to use forensic botany was the famous 1935 trial of Bruno Hauptmann, 1899 to 1936, who was accused, and later convicted, of kidnapping and murdering the son of Charles, 1902 to 1974, and N. Morrow, 1906 to 2001, Lindbergh. The botanical evidence presented in the case centered on a homemade wooden ladder used during the kidnapping and left at the scene of the crime. After extensive investigation, the plant anatomist Arthur Kohler, 1885 to 1967, showed that parts of the ladder were made from wooden planks taken from Hauptmann's attic floor.
How many fatalities occur each year in the United States due to tornadoes?
During the past 30 years, 1979 to 2008, an average of 57 people were killed each year by tornadoes, nearly identical to the average number of people killed by lightning during the same time period. The 10-year average, 1999 to 2008, for deaths due to tornadoes was 63 people per year.
How do bacteria reproduce?
Bacteria reproduce asexually, by binary fission, a process in which one cell divides into two similar cells. First, the circular, bacterial DNA replicates, and then a transverse wall is formed by an ingrowth of both plasma membrane and the cell wall.
Which radioisotope is most commonly used for biological specimens?
The most widely used radioisotope in autoradiography is tritium, 3H. Tritium allows a resolution of about 1 micrometer with the light. microscope and close to 0.1 micrometer with the electron microscope. Since hydrogen is common in biological molecules, a wide range of 3H labeled compounds are potentially available for use in autoradiography. 3H amino acids are used for locating newly synthesized proteins. 3H thymidine is used to monitor DNA synthesis. Ribonucleotides such as 3-uridine or 3H-cytidine are used to localize newly made RNA molecules. And 3H-glucose is used to study the synthesis of polysaccharides.
What are the major subdivisions of botany?
The major subdivisions of botany are: agronomy, the application of plant science to crop production; bryology, the study of mosses and liverworts; economic botany, the study of the utilization of plants by humans; ethnobotany, the study of the use of plants by indigenous peoples; forestry, the study of forest management and the utilization of forest products; horticulture, the study of ornamental plants, vegetables, and fruit trees; paleobotany, the study of fossil plants; palynology, the study of pollen and spores; phytochemistry, the study of plant chemistry, including the chemical processes that take place in plants; plant anatomy, the study of plant cells and tissues. Plant ecology, the study of the role plants play in the environment; plant genetics, the study of genetic inheritance in plants; plant morphology, the study of plant forms and life cycles; plant pathology, the study of plant diseases; plant physiology, the study of plant function and development; plant systematics, the study of the classification and naming of plants.
How does a meteorite differ from a meteoroid?
A meteorite is a natural object of extraterrestrial origin that survives passage through Earth's atmosphere and hits Earth's surface. A meteorite is often confused with a meteoroid or a meteor. A meteoroid is a small object in outer space, generally less than 30 feet, 10 meters, in diameter. A meteor, sometimes called a shooting star, is the flash of light seen when an object passes through Earth's atmosphere and burns as a result of heating caused by friction. A meteoroid becomes a meteor when it enters Earth's atmosphere. If any portion of a meteoroid lands on Earth, it is a meteorite. There are three kinds of meteorites. Irons contain 85% to 95% iron, the rest of their mass is mostly nickel. Stony irons are relatively rare meteorites composed of about 50% iron and 50% silicates.
How much energy is saved by raising the setting for a house air conditioner?
In general, For every 1 degree Fahrenheit the inside temperature is increased. The energy needed for air conditioning is reduced by 3%. If all consumers raised the settings on their air conditioners by 6 degrees Fahrenheit. For example, 190,000 barrels of oil could be saved each day.
What is the basic composition of a sponge?
A sponge is supported by a skeleton made of hard crystals called spicules, whose shape and composition are important features in taxonomy. Calcareous sponges have spicules of calcium carbonates, the material of marble and limestone. The silica spicules of the hexactinellid, or glass, sponges are formed into a delicate, glassy network. Demo sponges have siliceous spicules and a network of fibrous protein, spunger, that is similar to collagen. The demo sponges are the source of natural household sponges, which are made by soaking dead sponges in shallow water until all the cellular material has decayed, leaving the spongin network behind. However, most sponges sold now for household use are plastic and have nothing to do with real sponges.
How fast do a hummingbird's wings move?
Hummingbirds are the only family of birds that can truly hover in still air for any length of time. They need to do so in order to hang in front of a flower while they perform the delicate task of inserting their slim, sharp bills into its depths to drink nectar. Their thin wings are not contoured into the shape of aerofoils and do not generate lift in this way. Their paddle-shaped wings are, in effect, hands that swivel at the shoulder. They beat them in such a way that the tip of each wing follows the line of a figure 8 lying on its side. The wing moves forward and downwards into the front loop of the 8, creating lift. As it begins to come up and go back, the wing twists through 180 degrees so that once again it creates a downward thrust. The hummingbird's method of flying does have one major limitation. The smaller the wing, the faster it has to beat in order to produce sufficient downward thrust. An average-sized hummingbird beats its wings 25 times per second. Small species beat their wings 50 to 80 times per second, and even faster during courtship displays. The bee hummingbird, native to Cuba, is only 2 inches, 5 centimeters long and beats its wings at an astonishing 200 times per second.
What are the symptoms of Guillain-Barré syndrome?
Guillain-Barré syndrome is an autoimmune disorder where the body's immune system attacks part of the peripheral nervous system. The immune system starts to destroy the myelin sheath that surrounds the axons of many peripheral nerves, or even the axons themselves. The loss of the myelin sheath surrounding the axon slows down the transmission of nerve signals and muscles begin to lose their ability to respond to the brain's commands. The first symptoms of this disorder include varying degrees of weakness or tingling sensations in the legs. In many instances, the weakness and abnormal sensations spread to the arms and upper body. In severe cases, the patient may be almost totally paralyzed since the muscles cannot be used at all. In these cases, the disorder is life-threatening because it potentially interferes with breathing and, at times, with blood pressure or heart rate. Such a patient is often put on a respirator to assist with breathing and is watched closely for problems such as an abnormal heartbeat, infections, blood clots, and high or low blood pressure. Most patients, however, recover from even the most severe cases of Guillain-Barré syndrome. Although some continue to have a certain degree of weakness.
What is magnetic declination?
It is the angle between magnetic north and true north at a given point on Earth's surface. It varies at different points on Earth's surface and at different times of the year.
When will Halley's Comet return?
Halley's Comet returns about every 76 years. It was most recently seen in 1986 and is predicted to appear again in 2061, then in 2134. Every appearance of what is now known as Comet Halley has been noted by astronomers since the year 239 BCE. The comet is named for Edmund Halley, 1656 to 1742, England's second astronomer royal. In 1682 he observed a bright comet and noted that it was moving in an orbit similar to comets seen in 1531 and 1607. He concluded that the three comets were actually one and the same and that the comet had an orbit of 76 years. In 1705 Halley published a synopsis of the astronomy of comets, in which he predicted that the comet seen in 1531, 1607, and 1682 would return in 1758. On Christmas night, 1758. A German farmer and amateur astronomer named Johann Palitzsch spotted the comet in just the area of the sky that Halley had foretold. Prior to Halley, comets appeared at irregular intervals and were often thought to be harbingers of disaster and signs of divine wrath. Halley proved that they are natural objects subject to the laws of gravity.
How is hair color determined?
Genes determine hair color by directing the type and amount of pigment that epidermal melanocytes produce. If these cells produce an abundance of melanin, the hair is dark. If an intermediate quantity of pigment is produced, the hair is blonde. If no pigment is produced, the hair appears white. A mixture of pigmented and unpigmented hair is usually gray. Another pigment, trichosiderin, is found only in red hair.
Where is the largest solar generating plant located?
The largest solar generating plant in the world is the Solar Energy Generating System, SEGS, located in California's Mojave Desert. Consisting of 9 power plants, SEGS 8 and 9 located in Harper Lake are individually and collectively the largest solar generating power plants in the world.
Who started Earth Day?
The first Earth Day, April 22, 1970, was coordinated by Dennis Hayes. 1944, at the request of Gaylord Nelson, 1916 to 2005, U.S. Senator from Wisconsin. Nelson is sometimes called the father of Earth Day. His main objective was to organize a nationwide public demonstration so large it would get the attention of politicians and force the environmental issue into the political dialogue of the nation. Important official actions that began soon after the celebration of the first Earth Day were the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the creation of the President's Council on Environmental Quality, and the passage of the Clean Air Act, establishing national air quality standards. In 1995, Gaylord Nelson received the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his contributions to the environmental protection movement. Earth Day continues to be celebrated each spring.